In July of 2020, Netflix brought season 1 of the Polish crime drama Znaki, or Signs, to its platform. The season ended with a cliffhanger, leaving us to figure out when the next season was going to drop. Well, luckily the wait was very, very short because season 2 is already here. But should you be watching it? This is going to have mild spoilers for season 1, so just count this as your pre-warning. So we have season 1 ending with Trella, the police commissioner of this small town, his daughter being kidnapped and held hostage. That added its own little twist to the story, but there were other questions that were raised during that first season. But unfortunately, not all of them got resolutions. Now enter season 2, and episode 1 of this season, it's pretty rough. I mean, it's kind of a mess. It kind of jumps around just in the first episode, just jumps around with time and with characters, and just it doesn't feel cohesive. And unfortunately, most of season 2 feels that exact same way. Some of the problems that we encounter during this second season are like characters who just kind of disappear. And they're gone for episodes at a time with no explanation, and then they just poof, reappear. Or sometimes they're there and then they disappear without any explanation and they never come back. And it feels very odd to have these characters who seem pivotal to the story but are only being used at small points of it and then just discarded. We have some storylines in season 1 that weren't resolved by the end of season 1, and so, hoping that, okay, they will continue on to season 2, and they're kind of just forgotten about. They're unresolved. They're just kind of left there as in, whatever. The cult, I use that in very loose terms, with Jonas, and more of it's just kind of a religious sect where they just kind of live on their own, that took a minor role in season 1. I thought it was going to have kind of a bigger role than what it did. In season 2, it's almost non-existent. And so what that is it's a mostly useless story angle. I mean, even Jonas himself has a very minor role. I mean, yes, he's used effectively in 1 or 2 little parts, but other than that, I think it could have been carried out more efficiently, more effectively by somebody else, even though I kind of like his character. I just don't get to see very much of him. One of the technical things that made this season a little bit of a mess was that they added the use of a split screen to show 2 scenes happening in different locations with simultaneous action. Now, the first time they do that, they have this loungy music playing, and it breaks the entire mood because it was so out of the blue and out of left field, where the scene right before it and even leading into this is kind of dark and dour and, suspenseful maybe, but not goofy and not weird and not kind of, how you think of lounge music where the dude's sitting in the corner with a cigarette and he's kind of swinging and snapping and stuff, and it didn't fit at all. And then they repeat that same type of split screen a couple more times throughout the remaining of the show. And even then, when they do that, those scenes are not really pivotal scenes. Like the stuff that's going on simultaneously, I didn't need to see it happening at the same time. Is that just to show 2 different scenes and you had to make it fit into a timeline or make it fit into a time crunch? Maybe, well, there was other parts that you could have totally cut out. Now, we get some new characters in this season with a major story arc, and they go nowhere. It just fizzles flat. And, that's really frustrating because even their story arc doesn't progress anything too much. And so while I understand why they were there, I understand the overall concept of what they're trying to do with the addition of these new characters, in the end, they didn't really add anything. Now in season 2, about halfway through-ish, they introduce a mythology and maybe even a slight sci-fi aspect to the show. And that again feels like out of left field. Now I think of shows like Black Spot, where there is a mythology to that show. I mean, it's grounded in reality, but then there's this mythology aspect that's kind of floating out here. Is it real? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But at least it adds intrigue to the show, and it was there from the very beginning. And so then I can have total buy-in, whether or not it's actually based in reality, even though the majority of the show is. And that's where I was thinking with Signs. This show is based in reality. We haven't had anything that is weird, that's just out there in the realm of implausibility. And even if they did hedge that way a little bit with certain things, I'm okay. But they introduced midway through season 2 a mythology and a slight sci-fi aspect. There's no consistency with that. And that bummed me out because I like the sci-fi aspect of it, and I could even get behind the mythology aspect of it had they introduced that at the very beginning. So what this leads me to believe is that the writers don't really have a game plan. They don't know where they're going, and so they're just now kind of throwing things in there to maybe add some more interest. Now, I do still really like that there is an air of mystery that surrounds the location, and that it's based in a historical, at least somewhat historical fact. Because this is Poland and it is hearkening back to World War II and when Nazis were invading and how they were using the mountain range, I find that really interesting. I think that that adds a good layer of mystery, and that's where it could also kind of tinge towards the sci-fi. They could even keep it grounded in reality and have this idea there of something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, and I really like that. And I like the mystery that surrounds it. I like the characters that they bring in to build on that mystery. And some of the acting is still really great. I mean, I find myself drawn to a few of the characters, even if I don't like them. Trella isn't really a great guy. I mean, he frustrates me with his leadership skills or his lack of leadership skills, but I still want to watch him, even if I know that what I'm watching is going to end up as a train wreck. Now, Ada is awesome, and she's a great leader. She's somebody that you want on your side, not only because she has great leadership skills and capabilities, but she's also super loyal, and sometimes that's to a fault. Now, somebody that I absolutely loved in the first season because I wasn't too sure about him, but I liked just his demeanor, was Roman the priest. And he's lacking in this season. I mean, he's barely there. And then even when we see him, he's just kind of mumbling or moping, and he doesn't have a lot to him anymore. Doesn't have this oomph, doesn't have this drive, and he even loses some of that righteous fierceness that he had, where he knew what was right and what to do. And we even get to see him do some of the right things, and then he just kind of fizzles out. Now, in season 2, I was really hoping that we were going to get a lot of answers, and I ended up just getting more questions. I really want to love this show because I find myself sucked into the mystery. I mean, I love the story that they're building, but I'm not always satisfied and I'm not always enjoying the waste of time that some of it seems to be. And we have characters who aren't going anywhere. We have actions that don't lead to anything. And we have these arcs to the story which seem like they're about to build on something, and then ultimately they don't. There are parts to season 2 that are thrilling and anxiety-ridden. And honestly, that's what really kept me wanting to watch more and more. And I mean, I keep like this glimmer of hope that the mystery that they're building surrounding the town and what people are searching for and just what all of it could mean, in addition to the crimes and what Trella is investigating or just working through, all of that together. I mean, I wanted it to be more. I was holding out that hope, like I said, of, okay, this is leading someplace that is going to be an outstanding climax. It might be shocking, it might be depressing, it might be twisty and turny, but oh, I want it to be worth it. And by the time the last episode of season 2 ended, I mean, there was one part that was shocking, and I was like, ooh, okay, I'm drawn in. I want to know because my anxiety's going up. There's an urgency to what's going on. There's a lot of tension being built. And then also on the flip side, there's this story that they are not resolving. And then they're introducing some weird things that haven't been present throughout most of the show. And so then I'm in this conflict with myself of, I really like it. I want to like it. I want to like where it's going. I kind of like where it's going. And at the same time, I hate this show because it's not really answering anything for me, and it's making me more frustrated with certain characters because they just don't go anywhere. I mean, the mystery is enough to keep me engaged, and I'm still digging the characters, and I'm still really holding out hope that season 3, when and if it comes, will answer more of the questions, and it will take us down this path that they've kind of been leading us towards. And really, they doubled down a little bit in season 2 and raising up some, what the heck? I don't know what's going on, and this is weird, but I want to find out more. There's sex, nudity, a lot of profanity, and some graphic violence. I give season 2 of Znaki or Signs 2.5 out of 5 couches. Are you a fan of the show? Have you been looking forward to this second season? If you've seen it already, I'd love to know what you thought of season 2. Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.